Sparky the Spunky Squirrel raced down the path, tail bouncing like a spring. "Berry Badger, Winnie Weasel, the forest is too dark," he said. The moon peeked out but looked shy, hiding behind a cloud like it was playing hide and seek. Berry Badger waddled from his burrow carrying a half-eaten carrot. "Darkness can't eat carrots," he joked, but he squinted at the shadowy trees. Winnie Weasel popped from behind a log, giggling so hard she almost tipped over. Winnie Weasel twirled a stick like a baton and said, "Let's make the night less spooky." Sparky tapped his chin, pretending to think very hard, but grinning so wide his cheeks nearly squeaked. The trio stood by the river, watching the black water creep along. "It's like the river swallowed the stars," Berry said with a snort. Sparky's ears twitched like they were ready to catch an idea. "I have an idea," Sparky squeaked. "Glowing nut lanterns." Winnie laughed so hard she almost fell into the river. "Will they be snack-sized?" she asked, holding her tummy as she giggled. Berry Badger clapped his paws. "We'll need big nuts, not tiny ones," he said. Sparky scampered to find acorns, making silly sound effects like whoosh and zing as he ran through the trees. Winnie Weasel searched under bushes, pulling out nuts and pretending each was a treasure. "This one smells like adventure," she said, sniffing it loudly. Berry chuckled and shook his head at her antics. Berry Badger used his strong claws to scrape out the nutshells. "Looks like I'm making tiny helmets," he said, placing one on his head. Winnie laughed and said he looked ready for a nutty battle. Sparky the Spunky Squirrel stuffed the shells with glowing berries. "They're like fruity fireflies," he said, holding one up proudly. Winnie pretended it was a magic crystal and made mysterious "ooh" sounds. Winnie tied vines around the glowing nuts, humming a silly tune. Berry mumbled, "It's the lantern polka," and twirled one in his paw. They all laughed and tried dancing with the glowing nuts. The forest seemed to watch them work, branches swaying gently. Sparky said, "Even the trees want a lantern dance party." Winnie waved a vine at a branch like she was inviting it to join. Berry Badger tripped over a vine and rolled into a pile of nuts. "I'm a nut now," he shouted, arms spread wide. Winnie snorted so loudly, Sparky almost dropped a lantern. Winnie Weasel tested the first lantern in the river. It bobbed gently, casting wobbly light across the water. "It's like a glowing duck," she giggled, nudging it to make it wobble more. Sparky the Spunky Squirrel set 3 more lanterns floating. "The darkness is losing the race," he said, pointing downstream. The glowing lights swam away like happy little fish. Berry Badger pushed a big lantern into the water, but it splashed him in the face. "This one bites back," he said, shaking off drops, while Winnie laughed at his soggy whiskers. Lantern after lantern drifted away, painting the river gold and pink. Winnie twirled and sang, "Goodbye, gloom, hello, glow." Sparky clapped along while Berry stomped his feet like a drum. Sparky hopped onto a rock to watch their work. "It's a sparkly parade," he said, tail waving like a flag. The lights shimmered as they floated into the distance. Berry Badger puffed his chest. "We're official darkness chasers," he declared. Winnie saluted with a vine, then tied it around her head like a silly crown. The forest animals peeked from burrows and branches. Rabbits clapped, owls hooted, and a raccoon tried to grab a lantern. Sparky pointed and laughed at the raccoon's sneaky paws. Sparky the Spunky Squirrel wagged a finger at the raccoon. "No stealing the glow snacks," he said. The raccoon grinned and backed away, but kept watching the shiny lights. Berry Badger handed a lantern to a hedgehog. "Careful, it's brighter than my smile," he joked. Winnie laughed so hard she hiccuped, making the hedgehog giggle too. Lanterns floated far down the river, making the night look friendly. Sparky sighed happily. "We turn the shadows into smiles," he said, hugging his tail around himself. Winnie Weasel yawned, but kept dancing. "Darkness can't catch me now," she said, spinning in circles. Barry pretended to chase her, stomping like a slow monster. Sparky slipped on a wet rock, but landed in Barry's arms. "Saved by the badger," he said, bowing dramatically. Winnie clapped and shouted, "Encore!" Winnie pointed at the glowing river. "It's like the sky fell into the water," she said softly. Barry and Sparky nodded, their eyes wide with wonder. Airy Badger grinned. "Teamwork is the best lantern fuel," he said. Sparky tossed him a vine crown, making him look like a royal gardener. Winnie Weasel placed the crown on Barry's head. "King of the glow," she announced proudly. Everyone laughed under the sparkling trees, their voices mixing with the rustling leaves. Sparky the Spunky Squirrel looked at his friends. "We can brighten any night together," he said. The glowing river carried their laughter away into the stars. Barry curled up in his den and felt warm inside. He knew the forest would shine again when friends worked together.